Hello, my name is John Whaley, and this is Rooftop Perspectives. And our aim each week is simply to inspire you to join Jesus in his mission in your everyday life. And we do that through stories and conversations with people who are doing just that. And before I introduce to you my special guest today, let me just remind you to help us get the word out about Rooftop Perspectives by liking and sharing this episode with others. You can find Rooftop Perspectives on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, and a number of other platforms. And so leave a comment, leave a review, and get the word out as we are just having some amazing people join us in these weeks. Well, I'm excited today to have my good friend Frank Shelton with us. Frank is an international evangelist with Frank Shelton Global, bestselling author, the host of By Faith with Frank Shelton, which airs weekly to over 310 million Americans and people across Europe as well, and Africa. It's an amazing, amazing program. Number of different platforms carry it. Most of all, he's a man of God who loves the Lord and loves the lost and is a dear, dear friend. So I'm excited today to have Frank with us on the podcast. Frank, welcome to Rooftop Perspectives.
Brother John, what an honor to be back with you. I tell you, anytime I'm near you, it's a good day. And thank you again for your leadership on that huge rooftop encounter at the nation's capital. And you are so loved by everybody. And I just love the favor and the reach that God has given you. And whether it's Hollywood or, the National Prayer Breakfast, or it's just the Chosen, I mean, it never ends. And I just thank you for your faithfulness and God's hand on your life.
Well, brother, thank you so much for those kind words. And for those who have no idea who you are, because maybe they haven't seen one of our previous conversations, man, just tell us about Frank Shelton, your family, your journey to Christ.
Yes, sir.
And all that God's doing right now in your life.
Well, I treasure you, John. And so my name's Frank Shelton Jr. I'm the eldest son of Frank and Sharon Shelton, who just celebrated 57 years of wedding marriage.
Wow.
And, my mom was born July 4th, and their anniversary was July 5th. And my grandma said, you can't get married till 18. Well, they got married the day after her 18th birthday, and they've been together ever since. And God bless them. My dad was, went off to the war, and she wasn't sure if he was going to come back. And then he comes back, Sean. I never told you this story. Dad he had this 1962 Corvette right before I was born. And he was doing a double shift. Here he was with the U.S. Army. He was getting ready to join the U.S. Capitol Police. He was also working part-time at a gas station. Laziness was never in our family, but my father fell asleep at the wheel at 4 in the morning in a 62 Corvette. Went off the road, hit a tree. And if I recall, the car caught on fire. And what are the odds? One of the lone passengers or people driving by that day was a ER doctor on his way to the hospital to work. And he actually ministered to my father. I think he helped him pull him out of the car and rode with him to the hospital and basically saved his life. And then when my mom saw the car on the flatbed of the truck, actually, they saw it en route to the hospital because Corvettes are fiberglass, as you know.
Yeah.
She's like, there's no way he survived this. And so I'm actually here by grace because I think that was right before Mom and them got pregnant with me. And isn't that like the devil to try to take you out before it starts? I mean, we've never had this discussion. But even, back in the Old Testament, they're trying to kill all the children under age 2. They went after Jesus. And I joke, I shop at Walmart because Target's on my back. But anyways, I am so blessed to have been born. Mom and Dad, just good people. And but we know good people don't go to heaven. And I know this is the whole promise, the premise of your amazing show. But it was my mom's best friend from 4th grade who got radically saved, I think, in 72 in Dallas at that huge Jesus thing with Billy Graham and Josh
Wow.
McDowell. And she said Josh preached a sermon that day. It was like 30,000 on the hillside. It was like Woodstock for Christ. And basically, the woman at the well, come meet the man that told me everything about me. And the best people to be around are brand new Christians. They got the fire. No one's throwing water on it. You didn't have 10 deacons to tell you to dial it down or slow it down. And she didn't know the whole Romans road. She just knows I was lost and now I'm found. And she got saved. And the first thing she did, John, was come to our house. And the best she knew how, led my mother to the Lord. I'm talking like
Amen.
72 hours after Dallas.
Amen.
And the backstory to that, you'll love this. 3 Thursdays in a row, we had the Mormons and the Jehovah Witnesses come door to door, knocking on our door, trying to give us, their. And my mom was curious. After the second attempt, she knew not to let strangers in the house, especially with a little one. But she said, I'm curious. I know there has to be more to life than this. And she said, if they come back next week, my mom had already made up in her mind to let them in to tell them the story. And by the grace of God, if I recall, Judy got saved in Dallas on Saturday, flew home first thing Monday, led my mom to the Lord Tuesday. And Thursday, sure enough, they came back to my house. And my mom said, thanks, but no thanks. I found what I was looking for, and slammed it in their face.
Oh, wow.
I often wondered if we could have, instead of coming to Christ, we may have gotten pulled into a cult. This will preach today, this show. Number 2, some folks are doing more for a lie than we do for the truth. And
Amen.
3, when people say don't proselytize, well, they're spreading their news, but only we have good news. And we should let counterfeits beat us at our own game. And I say that respectfully. So you and I both agree that, we should not only keep the faith, but share the faith. So Judy was my godmother. And I know this may not be good theology, but I have a true fairy godmother because God used her in my life. And she's the one that gave us the ministering to the celebrities. I had heard the story in 74 where she waited for 2 hours at a hotel in California because Elvis was playing that night. She got word he was at this hotel. She stayed in the foyer and prayed and got a Bible and got through the crowd, gave it to him, and he's coming in with aviator sunglasses, took them off, kissed her on the cheek. She gave him the Bible. And my goodness, she was Dylan Novak before Dylan Novak. You know what I mean? So, and then she started sharing the gospel with Kevin Costner and John Travolta. And she's the one, John, that we won the Rambo contest. And at 13, spent the weekend with Sylvester Stallone. So she not only led my mom to the Lord, my dad and I got baptized the same day in 1982 together. So our whole family got born again in God's timing. But there's 3 J's. I thank God for Jesus. I thank God for Josh McDowell. And I thank God for Judy because, God used each of them. And then years later, I ended up serving on a board with Josh McDowell. And I told him the first time we called up, man, you talk about lasting fruit. He preached in 72. And I first met him in 2006. And fruit that remains, what an honor it's been. So that's how I came to Christ. That's pretty amazing, isn't it?
It is. I love that story. And I just love your whole life story, Frank. It's such an amazing story. And, one of the things you and I have talked about so many times is how God will often interrupt our lives.
Yes.
We've got our plan. We know where we're heading. We got our career goals. And then God steps in and changes everything. And he did that in your life in a rather dramatic way to call you and to get you where he wanted you to be as a full-time evangelist. So tell that story of how God interrupted your life and kind of where you were planning on heading before God said, no, this is my plan.
Well, yes. Well, the quick story is mom and dad both worked at the U.S. Capitol. So a couple times a year, I'd put on my Sunday best, my little tie, and I'd walk those halls. And I just was always intrigued and impressed by those marbles and the monuments and the halls of Congress. And dad was with the U.S. Capitol Police. My mother worked at the U.S. Capitol Historical Society. And I just was in all of the place. And there were some wonderful people. And there's the prestige and, the pomp and circumstance. And to think, wow, mom and dad worked there. And then I told people I was going to go into politics, protect the president, or preach. And then I had the honor to do this 18-year career as a staffer to members of Congress. But in that time, I also got ordained in 1998 at a Baptist church. And my passion was just, I wanted people to come to Christ. But at the time, I didn't really want to be a preacher. I just wanted to be a reacher. I just believe each can reach. But I knew God was up to something, John, because my last full year on Capitol Hill, I preached 110 times in 52 weeks in 14 states with a full-time Capitol Hill job. And every week in 52 weeks, if you do the math, if I preach Saturday and Sunday, that's 100, but I preached 110 times. And even on my 2 weeks with pay, I'm doing, 4 or 5 day revivals. And the Apostle Paul, he made tents, and my job was working for Congress, but my joy was an ambassador for Christ. And I knew, then I did some 9 out of 10 people would rather die than get up and be a public speaker. But then I thought, that's the time I feel the most alive. And it wasn't an arrogant thing. I tell people I didn't seek it out. I felt like it sought me out. But I did used to write speeches for a congressman, and then I started giving them in his absence. And that opened up a lot of doors in the community and the corporate world and public schools, graduations, baccalaureates. But I came to a kind of a moment of truth. I just did a 7-day revival in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and I did a bunch of school assemblies. And I got a call from the U.S. Capitol Police, and they said, if you want to come on board, you need to be here next week for 12 weeks of training. And so when you hear me say I wanted to go into politics or protect the president, well, I thought, well, maybe, and then to follow Dad's footsteps. And I'm a big fan of marketplace ministry, so you can shine a light wherever you're at. Amen. But after a couple weeks there, I prayed that night. I said, God, if you don't want me to do this, shut the door. And the next morning we were training. And the U.S. Marshals and the Secret Service. And I was doing an obstacle course. It was about 95 degrees, but it had rained the night before, and I'm running up a fire staircase. And I didn't slip. I completely ripped my thigh muscle turning a corner. It was almost like an NFL running back who was running, but on artificial turf, that carpet. If you're going one way and a linebacker hits you the other way, your knee. Well, I heard a and my rip, the thigh ripped from the width of my leg. And then I didn't know this, but when you're dehydrated, the muscles are trying to tear. And at 37 years old, I'm talking about running with young guns. They were 21, 22, 24. I'm 36 and a half. 37 is the cutoff to be a federal law enforcement officer. And I prayed that morning, if you don't want me to do this, shut the door. And John, as I'm running up the fire staircase, when I ripped my leg, it was dangling like jello. And I'm running up the last 200 steps on the rail, and I have no right leg. It's just limping. And I come around the corner, and there is a female sergeant, and she screamed, Shelton, you're a wimp. You need to run, run, run. And I'm thinking, I cannot believe she just called me a wimp. And you have to pick up a 110-pound mannequin, John, at the end, and carry it 40 yards as if you're dragging a human out of, harm's way, an accident, a fire. But with no right leg, 110 pounds is still a lot of weight. I went 10 feet and crashed with the dummy. And now there's 2 dummies, the mannequin and me. And everyone's like, what's wrong with Frank? And I'm in so much pain. I'm in shock. And I just preached in Alabama, John. It's not wrong to be knocked down. It's wrong to stay down. And I'm thinking, Lord, I got to practice what I preach. And I picked up that mannequin and I went another 20 yards and I collapsed again. And now I'm almost pinned by this 100. It's laying on top of me. And then I realized, my dad was a police officer. My uncle was a police officer. My granddaddy was a police officer. My great-grandfather was a police officer. My great-great-grandfather was a police officer. And my great-great-great-grandfather was a police officer. It was like Forrest Gump. One guy was in Vietnam, one was in Iraq, one was in World War II. And it's amazing what goes through your head. And I said, I've learned living up to history can be heavy, but missing your destiny can be deadly. And it was supernatural strength, John. I got up with everyone watching with no right leg, and I carried a 110-pound mannequin to the finish line. The good news is I finished. This time when I fell, I had blood on both of my elbows, and the same female that was screaming at me, "You're a wet run," there always is an ambulance on the property. She's screaming. Her eyes came out of her head. I think she was thinking I was going to sue her. She realized she pushed me way too wrong. She didn't know what happened was my kidneys had crashed. My body was in shock. And she's waving for the ambulance. They put me in the ambulance and they banged on the back of the door and closed it to tell the driver it's safe to go on, just like the movies. And I remember thinking, I just prayed, if God doesn't want me to do this, shut the door. I'm thinking symbolically, not literally. And John, they whisked me to the hospital. I spent 13 days in the hospital, 9 in the hospital, 4 on my back at the house. It was a $40,000 bill in 2006. That was 20 years ago. The U.S. Capitol Police paid for everything. And my mom came in. She drove 3 hours to the hospital, and she said, "Frankie, I got good news. I spoke to the lieutenant. They're going to give you a couple weeks light duty, and you're going to get to do it all over again." And I said, "Mom, I think it's clear that God has called me to step out completely by faith and go into full-time evangelism." So after a couple months of light duty, I even worked in the internal affairs office with the U.S. Capitol Police, and then I actually worked in the assistant chief's office. And to tell you how God works, when Dad retired, he was but he was acting assistant chief when he retired. And what are the odds? I'm in my dad's same office behind the same desk that he retired. And they were joking, calling me Chief Shelton all over. And I was driving the current assistant chief all around. And people are like, good Lord, it took us 30, 40 years to try to get here. And I feel like God kind of let me, Dad had already did his thing. And so I felt like we didn't have any unfinished business as far as Sheltons and law enforcement. So that was another way I'll also say this. I tip my hat to all of our first responders, whether they be law enforcement, first responders, the medical. It's a team effort. And that's just as much as a calling in that world as it is in the ministry. We're all in the ministry if we do it for the Lord. So all that to say, the good news is I did get a clean bill of health after several months to go back to work. But when I stepped out completely by faith, July 2007, it was 19 years last week. So next year's the 20th. I don't think I've shared this with you, but Blue Cross, where I had the best health insurance in the world because it was a group plan, it was the government, it was with Congress, the Capitol Police. They denied me health care for a pre-existing injury. And then they were going to charge me, this is in 2006, $1,600 a month just for my insurance, not counting the family. And then when you leave the retirement and the 401k and the health insurance and a 6-figure guaranteed salary and millions in 401k, that's not embellishing. That's not exaggerating. You do 20, 30 years matching funds. There's a lot of money I left on the table. So all that to say, then I got denied health care. And then so where I had the green light to go back when you got on your own, they denied me as a pre-existing injury that was work-related at no fault of my own. So when the kidneys crashed, I think sometimes I've still been dealing with something that really wasn't my neglect or fault. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then I preached in Africa to 100,000, and I had witch doctors curse me. And then I even had a little bit of problems with the liver. So I truly, like you, believe in the blood of Jesus, the great physician. I know
Amen.
he's a healing God, but I wouldn't be lying to you if I hadn't walked a little wounded since some of those injuries. And
Mm.
I'm trying to take the health back, but also life on the road, it comes with the price. But I also know our body is the temple, and I also know that we're a billboard, and I also know that right or wrong, our health is our calling card. So you can be the most captivated speaker in the country, but if we're just struggling weight, some will tune us out just because of that. So we're doing our best, and I just appreciate you for helping me just continue to just press on and press in. So
Amen.
thank you.
Well, I love that story. I love how God interrupted your life, and like I said, a very dramatic way to get your attention to lead you into
Yeah,
the ministry that you've been doing now for 19 years, Frank Shelton Global, where God's literally, I mean, taking you all over the world and in some amazing places that other evangelists have not
yeah.
even had the
Well,
opportunity to go. And
I know, and you're the same way. I celebrate all that God's done, and you've been in several spaces that I haven't, and it never surprises me. It's like John's like, yeah, I'm going there, or I've been there, and I just kind of laugh. It doesn't surprise. But with us, it's not a competition. It's just cheering each other on. But yeah, next
amen.
week, next month, I'm going to speak one night, Lord willing, in London, and then we take the train. And you'll like this. I'm in Cardiff, Wales, in the
Wow.
UK, where George Whitefield preached in 1739.
Mm.
I love the show you did with the actor from The Great Awakening with Whitefield and Ben Franklin with Sight and Sound. That was incredible. I saw it 3 times at the theater, but once again, you beat me to it because you saw the premiere, I think, at the NRB or something. But
Yeah, we did. I
great
saw,
movie
matter of fact, I went to two showings.
before it was
One was part
released.
of the National Prayer Committee, and the other one was with One Cry, and it was amazing. And then, of course, God opened the door for us to have Jonathan Blair on the podcast and talk about his role as George Whitefield, which was just an amazing conversation with him. But I really love what God's doing now. I think you would agree with me. We're in a season of harvest
Mm.
where we're seeing people more receptive to the gospel and to spiritual conversations. We haven't seen this kind of receptivity probably since the Jesus movement of the 70s, where we're just seeing God move across the nation in some incredible ways. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is what do you see God doing? What do you sense God is doing, and what do you sense God is saying to us in this season that we're in right now?
Yeah, well, I think number one is I think we're starting to see that we have a generation right now that is wants authentic truth, and
Mhm.
they're doing whatever they can to step up and pursue that to their credit. There's wonderful mentors like yourself and others coming around, and I think we, as a former youth pastor, we were sincere but sincerely wrong. I think we dumbed down the gospel so much. I mean,
Mhm.
if we bought a couple large pizzas and got 50, we bragged that we had 50, but there was next to no depth. And I think we put the bar so low that they were tripping over it. And then they were going to other places, not godly places, just because Christianity. But this group, it seems like the harder you preach and the more authentic you preach the gospel and just let the gospel be the gospel, the majority of them are clinging to it. They're pressing into it. They're bringing friends to it, and now we're finding a generation that's not only going to run with it and share it, but this is going to be the group that's
Mm.
going to be willing to die for it. I think we're seeing some of the false narratives fall before our very eyes, and then it's like the only thing standing tall is Jesus, and he's always been there, but sometimes through the smoke in the mirrors, it's hard. And you know, even at Christmas, we got a million flickering lights in the mall. It's beautiful. But with all the lights, you can still miss the light of the world. And so I just
Amen.
starting to think, you know, Jesus is coming to clear. He's high definition. And, you know, you and I are part of this thing. You introduced me to the Nehemiah Alliance. So when you say, what is God doing? You're also doing a Million Souls campaign. It's amazing. And we just celebrated America's 250th, not just in July, but rededicating back to God on the National Mall, where thousands of people showed up. We even had cabinet level people speak. It was amazing. Pastors preaching. And so, and then you just did the Gen Z Rooftop with Pastor Tyler from Nashville. I mean, they came from 5 different states, and that was just the inaugural one. So now I believe colleges may be getting on board, community college. I just think with whatever window we have, we're going to see an acceleration of not only evangelism, discipleship, but here's the key. I believe a renewed sense of joy, because I think a
Amen.
lot of us are thinking heaven is going to be sweet at the by and by. But the Bible I read and often forgot was Jesus came that our joy may be full now. So it's not, you don't have to
Amen.
wait down the road. He brings the best, and there's no disgust with the divine. So I believe there'll be a renewed optimism and a new sense of faith and victory. And we have the victory, and we're just going to keep on marching.
Amen. Amen. So good. So good. These are exciting days to be in. We're seeing so many people come to Christ and seeing so many movements of God, not just in our nation, but literally across the globe. And it's just exciting. And man, I am so glad you took time to join me today, Frank. It's been a great, great conversation. Thank you, brother, for all that you do for the kingdom of God.
Oh, no, thank you.
You are a
I
blessing.
treasure you, brother, and thank you so much.
Well, I treasure you as well. And for all of you who joined us today for
and thanks for all that you've done for me.
Oh, you're welcome, brother. Thank you so much.
You even got Ruth and I to Hawaii, so I owe you. I love you, and I hope you have a good day.
I will.
Let
me just wrap up
with our friends, and I know the devil's trying. Yeah,
let me go ahead and wrap up, and then so for all of you who watched today, thank you for taking time to watch Rooftop Perspectives. Let me leave you with this thought, and it's a very simple thought that I've thought about as I was thinking through Frank's story. God's interruptions are God's invitation to join him in transforming when we live, work, and play with the gospel. And if you want to know more about Frank Shelton Global and Frank Shelton himself, just simply go to frankshelton.com and you learn more about Frank, and invite him to come lead a revival at your church or in your city. And he would love to come and be with you. So thank you for joining us today, and have an incredible week as you join Jesus in his mission in your everyday life.